Hello, everyone. Welcome to the TAG Young Professional Society first event of the year, Leveling the Field, Finding Your Success as a Young Professional. My name is Sean Nicholas, and I'll be the moderator for this event. And first off, we wanted to thank our society sponsor, Comcast. Comcast Business is the leading technology provider in the country, delivering tailored business solutions to small, medium, and enterprise-sized business customers. Comcast Business is not only committed to the success of their customers, but to the communities in which they serve. Most recently, they have committed to invest over $1 million to the Atlanta community as part of Comcast Rise, a resource program offering complementary business, marketing, and technology solutions to eligible Black-owned businesses impacted by COVID-19. On behalf of everyone here at TAG, Young Professional Society, we would like to express our sincere gratitude for your annual contribution to our team. We really appreciate it and look forward to a prosperous future together, and sincerely thank you for investing into the lives of the young professionals across Atlanta. I will now have this evening's panelists introduce themselves. So we can go ahead and start off with Alex.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Alex Blakely. I am a marketing manager at Comcast, and I am responsible for the small business group in our organization, events, also strategic marketing strategies, and doing a lot of things in our organization, holding meetings and hosting different people when we have events. I have been at Comcast for 9 years, and I am the co-chair here on the TAG board.
Thank you so much, Alex. And next we'll go to Caitlyn.
Hi, everyone. I'm Caitlyn Fredenhagen, and I work at Synovus as an information security analyst. I lead our application security and vulnerability management programs, and I have a focus on culture change around cybersecurity. I'm thrilled to have the opportunity to talk a little bit about myself today, so thank y'all for coming.
Thanks so much, Caitlyn. Next, we're going to go ahead and go to Grayson.
Hey, everyone. My name is Grayson Miller. I'm originally from Raleigh, North Carolina, went to South Carolina, the other Carolina. I am an associate transitioning to a private wealth advisor at Goldman Sachs here in Atlanta, and I'm excited to meet all of you guys and hopefully hear some good questions and hear some of your stories as well.
Thanks a ton, Grayson. And last but not least, we'll go to Nick.
Hi, everyone. I'm Nick Ramacca, Senior Analyst of Supply Chain for Beauty by Imagination, and it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So I just wanted to start this panel off by asking the same question to each of you. I think that understanding what success means to each of you will help contextualize your answers. So specifically, how do you define success? And we'll go ahead and start with you, Alex.
Thanks. So I personally define success by setting goals and then hitting each and every one of those goals, right? It's easy to make a list of things we want for ourselves and things we want to achieve. But when I can actually check something off of that list, that is, to me, how success is defined in my little world.
I think you're muted, Sean, but I'll go ahead. So I think I have a pretty non-traditional view on success. I believe that success has a lot to do with my ability to be creative and what problems I'm able to solve for that specific day. Success in my eyes has nothing to do with how much money you make or titles. It has everything to do with fulfilling your goals, like Alex said, and continuously bettering yourself.
Thanks so much, Caitlyn. Thanks for the heads up as well. Next, we can go to Grayson.
Sure. I think that my definition of success has evolved over time, but I always come back to the same word as well as the title of one of my favorite books, Grit by Angela Duckworth. Grit is defined as courage and resolve, strength of character. I think success is about going the distance, getting your reps in, perseverance, right? At the same time that you're improving your skill, you're employing that skill. So applying effort to your talent to obtain skill, and then applying effort to your skill to reach achievement. Effort being the key word there. I think effort builds skill, but at the same time, it makes it productive.
Absolutely. Great reply. Thanks, Grayson. And now we're going to go to Nick.
Yeah, so when I think of success, I like to think long-term, and it's probably what most people want. I want a beautiful family, a well-balanced lifestyle, and no financial worry. And while all of that would be really nice to have, I also want to feel happy and accomplished, fulfilled. So I feel like giving back to those less fortunate than me will give me that self-satisfaction that I made that happen through my own hard work. Through my current experiences at my company, I have learned that in order to feel that accomplishment and fulfillment, it's up to nobody but myself. And I'm just going to say, if you want to be successful, you need to make sacrifices and you need to buy into your work and yourself, because no one is going to do it for you.
Agreed, Nick. That buy-in is really, really important. So yeah, we got the first round of questioning from our panelists. So I want to get some engagement from the crowd. If everyone's excited to hear from our panelists, can we get some thumbs up in the chat, some hand claps on the screen, some nice emojis? And then we're going to go ahead and get into the questions from the actual panelists themselves. So we're going to go ahead and hear from all of them and their individual paths to success. So we're going to go ahead and start with Grayson. So Grayson, first question. What experience made you realize initiative was important in your career?
Yeah, happy to. I think I still have a thumbs up by my video, so I'm excited. One of the greatest lessons that I learned early on was how much of an impression you can make by being proactive versus reactive. And it sounds simple, and it is simple, quite frankly, but we all have our known primary responsibilities and daily tasks. But I came to a realization that if I simply just completed what was asked of me, while I'd be meeting expectations, I certainly wouldn't be exceeding them. And for me, that just wasn't the level of fulfillment that I wanted. So I think that you can view work as a job or a career. And when you get to a point where you're taking initiative as a regular occurrence, then you're making a career for yourself. I'm a firm believer that with every challenge comes growth. And I quickly realized that the days would get quite monotonous if I didn't feel like I was taking on opportunities outside of my comfort zone and new responsibilities. It's never too early to start building your internal and external brand. And, whether you realize it or not, you're doing it every day. So make time to ask people high up in your company to get coffee, get involved with the community, show up to events like this. Props to all of you for showing up today. But looking back on how much I learned by networking internally and externally with leaders who had traits that I admired or were at places in their career that I wanted to be at, I now realize how impactful that was. Another great piece of advice that I kind of taught myself, early on in my career, and still sometimes you can ramble or talk yourself silly and talk in circles, but being quick to listen and slow to speak. I actually think I learned that maybe in a sermon by Andy Stanley. Buckhead Church is where I go. And I think I learned it from a sermon, but I apply it to my work life, being quick to listen, slow to speak. There's so much power in listening and absorbing as much information as you can. Understanding people's stories, understanding the foundation of where something even starts and the root processes around that. So listening, absorbing, and reflecting can also help you find your passion. I think that there's a lot of myths that you need a passion to start taking initiative, but sometimes you don't have a passion yet. But if you can start with a little bit of direction driven from some interest or inspiration, narrow your focus and take action in that direction, it'll eventually form some sort of excitement or interest, which will drive initiative. It's a cyclical process, but if you can just keep yourself engaged and find something to look forward to, then I think it can be really meaningful. And I also think I'll conclude that question with, it starts with discernment-based listening. And what I mean by that is looking for not just the how of things, but really look for the why. The root, there's the what, the why, and the how. And I think people sometimes go in different orders and whatever floats your boat, but really looking for the why and trying to understand the deeper meaning behind things is super impactful. So in conclusion, be proactive, start early, be a good listener, and always look for the why, not just the how.
Thanks so much, Grayson. I think those are all great points. I do RCPS, so finding the root cause of what you want to do is always first and foremost. Great point. All right, so next we're going to go ahead and go to Caitlyn. So Caitlyn, the Daniel Pink question for motivation: autonomy, mastery, and purpose. Could you elaborate?
Sure. So first I want to say it's a fascinating read for anybody that hasn't read it. It's called Drive by Daniel Pink. Haven't quite finished, but I'm getting there. I am really thankful to say that my current position at Synovus has provided me the opportunity to self-actualize and seek out improvements or process gaps. I'm able to do what I find most important in the ways that make the most sense to me. This is precisely the point that Pink makes in the book. Autonomy is important to me because I frankly tend to do things differently than others would. Everyone functions in their own way, and if you allow them to have that autonomy, they will spend less time focusing on the process and more time focusing on the results. This is a value that more and more organizations are putting focus on. I was doing some research the other day and found that a multitude of companies are providing neurodiversity ERGs, which is a great example of this. In my eyes, providing resources for people that think differently is more effective than forming the way they think. For the mastery piece of the puzzle, I just chose an excellent field. Cybersecurity is constantly shifting and changing. I find myself struggling to choose exactly what training I want to do first. A good example of this, my 5-year plan is to break out into penetration testing and red teaming, but my short-term goals are dictating that I spend more time learning about the things in the DevSecOps world. It's fulfilling to be in a career where you can spend a large amount of time learning and discovering, and there will always be more to pursue later. Finally, there's purpose. Since I was a kid, I've always wanted to kind of fight the bad guys. This initially took the form of wanting to work in forensics, then morphed into wanting to be a doctor, I guess the bad guys being disease in this case. I found the prospect of diagnosing patients and assisting them in feeling well to be thrilling. It turns out I could easily segue into computers with this mindset. I was able to diagnose or troubleshoot computers and see what technically ailed them. While I was going to school for computer science, one of my professors mentioned that the government was hiring hackers since there was such a shortage of talent in the cybersecurity pipeline. This was where I realized I could make a significant difference both by being a pair of hands in that field and working directly against some terrifying consequences to cybercrime. This is something I wake up thinking about. I go to sleep thinking about it. I love knowing that what I'm doing makes a difference in my company's security posture and the way that they keep out the bad guys. So I'll basically say Daniel Pink has it very right.
I think we can all concur with that sentiment. Thanks so much, Caitlyn. Next, we're going to go ahead and go to Nick. So Nick, can you tell us a story where initiative has been a game changer for a project or work effort?
Yeah, so taking initiative does not mean rushing through a task just to get it complete, right? It means if you do the right thing, if you don't do the right thing the first time, when are you going to do it again, right? With that in mind, whenever I take on a new task, I break it down into each individual step. This way I know if I'm dealing with a 5-step process or a 25-step process. So when I started at my company in 2019, we had just acquired a new brand, Goody. And when I started working in the Goody office, my first job was to execute daily tasks, and they were very tedious and time consuming. And it was frustrating because I felt stagnant and stuck in my work doing the same 4-hour process day in and day out. That being said, I decided to take initiative to challenge myself to run these tasks more efficiently, to free up time so I can learn more and help out in other areas of the business. Since I majored in informatics at Indiana University, I decided to utilize my coding background along with extensive research to automate each step of my task. With a ton of research and a bunch of failed trials, my industrious efforts had led me to automate over 1,000 hours of work over the course of the year, which I was then able to reallocate to other areas of the business. If I hadn't taken the initiative in the first place to find the more efficient way to get my tedious tasks done, then I would not be in the senior position I'm in today.
Thanks for that feedback, Nick. Great point. All right, so we're going to go ahead and go to Alex. So Alex, what innovations have you and your company made regarding the pandemic and the new normal for working from home?
So as I mentioned, I manage a field sales team who is used to, being able to door knock when they make sales, being able to be out and about talking to their customers.
Wow.
Of course, the work from home environment took a toll on that, right? So some of the innovations that we made as a company was, one, we have a lot of meetings. So we use interactive software called vFairs that helps to give us a little bit more engagement during our virtual meetings. We're on this space, we either use Zoom or Teams. When we have large meetings for our entire org, vFairs allows us to have avatars that we can create, and they can actually sit in a stadium, and it gives you the feel that you're actually there. It includes breakout rooms, it includes all types of things that are very unique to the platform and a little bit different from what you can see on Teams or Zoom. We also use Kahoot now for icebreakers. We can't really, do the in-person thing, but we still want to have fun. So we utilize Kahoot, which I'm sure a lot of companies do. And another part of our business is that we need to empower our field sales reps to be able to stay engaged with their customers, right? Because we've got to make money. So some things we have incorporated is a tool called Vidyard, which allows us to incorporate video into email so that you're not just sending plain text emails when you're prospecting. People get tired of just seeing words on a page, right? So we want to incorporate video. Another one is Calendly, which is a scheduling tool that allows the prospects to see transparently into a field sales rep schedule so that they can, take that power in their own hands and schedule it when they're available versus the sales rep reaching out and having a lot of back and forth to see when someone's available. It just makes it a lot easier. And one important thing we've done, we have incorporated a customer thank you site to where we have a marketing campaign behind it. If they take a meeting with us, a virtual meeting, then as a thank you, we send them a link and they're able to go to a website where they can select a gift from Comcast Business that just says, thank you. We know it's a tough time. We know you don't want to hop on video calls all day, but you've done that. You've allowed us to, share some information with you, and we just want to thank you. So the main thing that we've done is empower our sales reps to be a little bit more engaged when they can't be there in person.
Thank you so much, Alex. I know we've all had different experiences with this work from home that we had for the past year, so finding that new norm is definitely important. Great takeaways. Thank you so much. All right, so we're going to go back to Grayson. So Grayson, what are the first steps in your opinion when it comes to taking an initiative?
Yeah, I think that aside from the obvious of getting in the right mindset, believing in yourself, remembering that you're there, you were hired for a reason, that the first and often hardest step is raising your hand. I think that crafting a roadmap is a common buzz phrase often used, and organization, preparedness, discipline, doing your research, all of that is certainly key. But what I mean here is don't let the fear of failure or not being able to connect all of the dots up front deter you from stepping up to the plate to begin with. So if you can identify a problem and discern a vision and an end solution for fixing it, be bold and choose to take on that responsibility. Use your creative vision, the resources available to you to come up with a deliberate, disciplined approach. You're going to notice I say disciplined a lot because that's been a big thing for me is finding discipline and holding myself accountable. But do your initial digging, set goals, quantify a timeline, call in the resources, and then connecting the dots to that end solution or finished product will be a dynamic, natural process. The risks, of course, making a mistake along the way or hitting a roadblock, but that's part of it. And more times than not, in my opinion, people are going to remember less about you making a mistake or hitting a roadblock along the way than they are that you took the initiative and raised your hand to begin with. Managers recognize problem solvers and eventually will want you to solve larger problems. They're going to remember more that you had that willingness to contribute, to learn, to drive change, and they're going to want to call upon you in the future. So ultimately, that's going to increase your chances of, progressing your career and positively contributing to that brand that I mentioned earlier that you're consciously or subconsciously building every day.
Great takeaways, Grayson. I heard discernment a lot too. That's one of my buzzwords as well that I've been using 2021. So we're going to go ahead and go to Caitlyn next. So Caitlyn, what advice would you give to your peers who struggle to feel passionate in their roles?
This is a really great question because it actually ties into my previous question. Something wonderful that Daniel Pink writes about in his book is that anyone has the potential to harness their intrinsic motivation, which is basically what I view as passion. So whenever I'm presented with something that I'm not particularly excited about, I will find something within the task that is exciting. Pink calls this the Sawyer Effect. The moment you decide to enjoy something is the moment that you will genuinely enjoy it. A great example of this was when I was working in an IT help desk job. This was not my number one choice. Originally, I wanted to be working with networking equipment, and at some point in my schooling, I determined I didn't want to do that either. However, I enjoyed breaking down technical issues in a way that the typical end user would understand. I found my creativity coming out in this. I would say things like, oh, it's clearly a Monday for the computer too, or your system is feeling a bit grumpy or under the weather today. When end users ask what was wrong with it, they don't want or understand the technical breakdown. So I found this dynamic between me and my customers absolutely fascinating. This aspect of my position brought me a sense of fulfillment, even if the remainder of the job wasn't exactly what I wanted to do in that moment. But to play devil's advocate to my own point, if you're not at all passionate in your career, you may need to reconsider whether you're in the right field or position. When I was working in help desk, my passion for security bled into a lot of the things I did in my day-to-day work. I would seek out opportunities to improve the security posture of the company, even though that's not what I was hired for. I ended up presenting to most of our organization on how to improve cyber hygiene when I was a level 1 support specialist. This was the point in my career that I realized I needed to move on to a career where I could focus solely on security. I could keep working in that position, but I wouldn't be particularly happy or fulfilled until I moved on to focusing on my passion full time. I also believed that my moving on would have been inevitable. I felt a pull towards security that would have led me down the path I'm currently going down, regardless of the circumstance.
Absolutely, Caitlyn. And I guess finding passion is very, very important to everybody, no matter what their age range is or demographic, for sure. Would love to concur. So we can go ahead and go to Nick next. So Nick, what are some ways that you have taken initiative to scale your professional growth individually?
Yeah, so I believe that relationships are key in business and in life. After I took initiative to make my job more efficient, I realized that I could help my colleagues and make their jobs more efficient as well. I took initiative to take on tasks for other people in other departments, assisting people on the finance team, the sales team, and the customer service team, and the list just goes on and on. After a few months, I had the head of each department in my company reaching out to me directly and asking me if I can help them with tasks they were working on. This got me a lot more involved in meetings with other departments, and it gave me a lot more visibility to the areas of the business that I really hadn't seen before. Now I can see the bigger picture and not just what my title implies. Long story short, I was able to find the opportunity to assist my colleagues in my own free time, and I capitalized. And in turn, I built relationships across the company and with third-party providers. It takes more than doing what you're supposed to do in order to earn recognition. It's getting your job done and still being hungry to do more and be more.
It's a great point, Nick. Scaling up professional growth is extremely important. I have conversations with my hyperscaler team at VMware, and they're scaling for their customers. So it's always a conversation we're having, both professionally and on the aggregate scale. Great point. So we're going to go ahead and go to Alex. So Alex, what is your process for innovating defined business processes? And do you prefer to collaborate on new ideas, or do your best ideas come from deep thinking?
Thanks for that question, Sean. So to define my process, I have 3 steps: research, collaboration, and buy-in. So I'm a deep thinker. I love keeping a journal of my ideas. And I know sometimes, when we have great ideas, we want to keep them to ourselves, right? We don't want anyone else to take our idea or credit for our idea. But when I see something cool, I think on it. The next step is researching that, right? So if it's a new tool that I saw, I thought it was cool, I'll research it so that I know everything that there is to know about that tool before I take it to my team. How much does it cost? How will it fit into our business model? Who will it benefit? And then the next step after that, like I said, collaboration. So it is important, it's very, very important to include the people on your team in your ideas. So that's how your ideas grow. I'm reading a book called Never Fly Solo, and it's really talking about how you need your wingmen right beside you every step of the way. So once I collaborate with my team, we'll bounce ideas off each other. They can help me kind of refine my idea. After that, we have to get buy-in from our leadership team. But not only do we want buy-in from our leadership team, we want buy-in from the people who are actually going to use these tools. So an example for me would be my sales team. I might think it's great, but is it something that they're going to use? Do they have time to use it? How's it going to fit into their day, right? Because you can have a great idea all day, but when it comes to implementing those ideas, I make sure that I hit every one of those steps before, we take it to market.
Absolutely, Alex. And within my sales organization, we have those same conversations about the 360-degree buy-in. It's extremely important for sure. Thanks so much. So now we're going to go ahead and go back to Caitlyn. So Caitlyn, what personal passions do you have that support or align with your professional role?
Awesome question. So I actually have an exorbitant amount of hobbies. I've taken up crochet, knitting, sewing, embroidery, playing the ukulele and the piano. I was even tempted at one point to play pro in a competitive video game. Recently, I've been enjoying setting up weekly planners and doing creative journaling. Now, at first, I had a really difficult time drawing the parallel between this and my professional life. I couldn't really see why my large amount of hobbies could contribute until I remembered something I experienced a couple of weeks ago. I recently took this really interesting professional personality test. It's called Clifton Strengths for those who are interested. And this test highlighted my top 10 strengths. The top 5 in order for me are ideation, strategic, achiever, learner, and input. The reason I bring that up is because I found that all of my hobbies and my processes at work are directly influenced by these traits. It's also helped me pinpoint where I can focus my energy to improve. My fascination with new ideas makes research and brainstorming some of my favorite pastimes. I feel refreshed and ready for work when my team brings in new ideas and projects to the table. However, I need to make sure that my communication facilitates understanding instead of just running through all my ideas blindly. Achievement drives me to pick up new hobbies that I'm not sure I'll be able to learn. Like music, I used to think I would never be musically inclined. It also drives me to reach my goals both in and out of the virtual office. To improve, I need to ensure that I'm being empathetic towards others on my team, and that I have the time prior to making commitments. Learning is my main passion. I could have told you that prior to taking this personality test. However, I wasn't aware that it contributed to my ability to block out distractions and focus on learning and completing a task. This has been extremely beneficial both in my home and work life. It's the main reason I continue to pick up hobbies. I just have a thirst for knowledge that has yet to be quenched. To continue to use this trait to its fullest, I need to focus on the productivity and results that come from learning and not get caught up in learning itself. These 3 traits influence almost everything in my life, so it makes sense why I have so many hobbies, finally. Also, fun side note, for input, it mentions that I probably collect books, and if you could see behind me, you would see I have 2 bookshelves full, so yeah.
Well, Caitlyn, based off of your answer, you seem extremely multifaceted, and I would love to absorb just half of your skill set, so thank you very much for your answer. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and go back to Alex. So Alex, how has innovation helped you succeed in your professional life?
So one way innovation has definitely helped me succeed is that I believe it builds trust. So when you're constantly throwing out ideas, you're bouncing ideas off of other people in your organization, you then become that go-to person for ideas. People, view you as creative. They want to run things by you. They want to see what your input is. So to me, that has helped me really get ahead. When I say I share any and every idea with my team, again, back to that collaboration point, I share any and everything with my team. Those ideas get legs, they travel, people talk to other people, and sometimes, even if I have an idea that we can't implement at that time, it'll come up in a later conversation. So as young professionals, I do believe we have a huge advantage here. We're always feeding our brains with books and TV and social media. So we have so much knowledge in this area, and just gaining the trust of people who you work with and being that go-to person has really helped me to move ahead in my organization.
I concur 100%, Alex. I work with a lot of people who are a lot older than me, and I think we have a very distinct skill set and perspective that provides a lot of insight. So agree 100%. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and go back to Grayson. So Grayson, what does initiative mean to you, and how have you used the initiative to scale your professional growth?
Yeah, I think that initiative is more than the idea that you start with. It's about developing the social and emotional skills to envision something and then convey that and take action. Alex was just talking about giving your idea legs to run. I loved that. And also the comment you made, Alex, about keeping your nose in a folder and coming back to them. I always try to let the nose motivate me, to be honest. I think that's a great method instead of letting it, get you down. But initiative is about being deliberate and being thoughtful, and also using initiative as a means to build other skills, leadership skills, stepping out of your comfort zone, building discipline, perseverance. I'm going to come back to the book Grit again on the note of perseverance. I'm going to get a little nerdy here. I feel like Caitlyn and I must be reading some overlap in our books with some of the insights we've shared, but there's two equations that Angela Duckworth mentions in Grit. And I tell myself this all the time. If I'm ever feeling, a lack of motivation, I remind myself that it's multifaceted, right? So talent times effort equals skill, and then skill times effort equals achievement. So to do something really well, sometimes you have to overextend yourself, and that doesn't mean don't have a work-life balance. It just means push yourself to seize your full potential, make time. And then over time, you come to appreciate that in doing something over and over again, something that was maybe never natural to you to begin with becomes almost second nature. And you learn that you have the capacity for that. It doesn't happen overnight, but it's a process of finding and mastering your craft. And we're doing that every day, right? I think every day everyone's trying to find and master their craft. But initiative's about having grit, and grit's about perseverance. So without effort, your talent is nothing more than your unmet potential. And without effort, skill is nothing more than what you could have done, but you didn't. But with effort, talent becomes skill, and at the same time, it makes that skill productive. So I've tried to use my initiative to build my internal brand early on and be viewed as someone who's proactive. After 4.5 great years at my first job, I eventually came to a point where I felt like I hit a plateau, meaning I was raising my hand to do more and seeking out opportunities that just weren't there at the time. And ironically enough, with the topic being initiative, the reason that I ultimately chose to make a career pivot was because of that desire for more exposure and experience to accelerate my growth. And then, eventually have to restart the cycle of rebranding myself as someone who's proactive, that internal networking, which is initiative in itself, to ask someone superior to you for their time and for their story, right? But at the end of the day, taking initiative provides more opportunity for more exposure and more experience. And with experience comes confidence, and with confidence comes success. So that's really always been my mantra, is just finding more experience, because the more experience I get, the more confident I'll get and the more successful I'll be. So, yeah.
All great takeaways, Grayson. Thank you very much. All right, so next we're going to go ahead and go to Caitlyn. So Caitlyn, how has being passionate made you stand out internally and externally?
Okay, so I believe that the first thing someone notices about me is my energy. When I talk about cybersecurity, my energy increases probably about tenfold. From an external perspective, it has actually gotten to the point where my husband is able to give you a general idea of what a SQL injection is, and he's never spent a day researching cybersecurity in his entire life. My family members forward me phishing emails and say, look at how good this fish is. I think it's great. My family gets all the knowledge they need about phishing emails and cyber hygiene, while I get to see all the interesting phishing emails. It's fascinating how they're improving in that field. Internally, my passion has caused me to become a go-to security person for several key departments. I have consistently tracked down answers to my questions and educated myself in things that were necessary for what I do. It's a rare day for me to not do some research on how to better our programs and my handling of our programs. This has become evident to my management, who have seen the increase in efficiency and productivity of our programs, as well as the slow but steady culture change in both application security and vulnerability management. I find myself consistently encouraging people to learn more about security, praise them when they do things to increase our security posture, and celebrating with my peers and management alike when we pull off something great. Another passion of mine is increasing the number of women in the cybersecurity workforce. Because of this, I was working towards creating a program at my job specifically for women in security. However, we rolled our efforts into a more general effort of creating a women in tech program, which has been doing very well. Being a trailblazer of this program has given me direct time with who became some of my absolute greatest sponsors and mentors. Because of my passion and drive, I created opportunities for myself that I wouldn't have had otherwise. So because of the things that I brought to the table during my very short time in security, I've only been working in the field for about 2 years, I have been at the table with some of the highest levels in our company. I've had the opportunity to present the improvement of our application security program to our CISO and our EVP of technology. These are things I never would have imagined I would be sitting here telling you about 2 years ago. I'm normally a pretty timid, anxious person, but my passion gives me courage to speak out in a room with people higher up than me. It gives me the ability to study for long hours and be prepared to speak on the things that people expect me to be an expert in. It gives me desire to teach, desire to learn, and desire to spread my knowledge as much as possible.
Thanks so much, Caitlyn. I think we can all hear the passion in your voice when you speak on the things that you do. So thank you very much. All right, so next we're going to go to Nick. So Nick, what are some ways to take initiative without being the leader?
Well, Sean, you can't have too many chefs in the kitchen. So there are so many different ways in your company to take initiative without being in a leadership role. I would recommend to get involved in whatever your company offers outside of the office. They might have clubs or events, or if that's not an option, invest in yourself. Enhance your knowledge or get a head start on a new project. This past fall, I decided to join the Culture Club at my company, which is the group of people who run all of the events. My goal in joining the club was to be more involved in non-work related tasks, but also to bring my coworkers together through fun and low stressful interactions. Being that COVID had just hit and there was a restriction on meeting in person and holding in-person events, it felt like a lost cause at first. So I decided to spend some time developing an idea to pitch to the chairperson of the club about creating a fantasy football league. The other members agreed that it would be a great way to bring livelihood to the office. So I collaborated with the chairperson to develop a user-friendly and reliable way for everyone in the company to be able to participate. And this influenced about 30% of the company to join before the season even started. Throughout the regular season, the office was getting into trash talk and having fun, competing for money. So it definitely helped bring the office closer together, and it helped influence more participants to join. By taking this initiative, I was able to elevate work relationships into personal relationships and create a more enjoyable work environment. But I also found balance between my work and my personal life. Initiative is not limited during the workday. So these past few months, working from home has really allowed me to utilize my extended work hours to focus on enhancing my own abilities and teaching myself new skills. I'm currently teaching myself how to create apps, and I constantly push myself to accomplish short-term goals while reassessing my long-term goals. So I just want to come back to this, and it's just very important to reflect on yourself and to make yourself a priority as well when you're working in the professional world.
Agreed 100%, Nick. And finding that balance is extremely important. I think Gordon Ramsay would agree with your chef in the kitchen analogy as well. So that's a great take. And now we're going to go to Alex. So Alex, do you have any advice for peers who struggle with creativity or innovation?
Yeah, sure. So if you feel as if you struggle with creativity or innovation, don't ever compare yourself to someone else. First and foremost, we all have our own individual unique styles. And like I said earlier, collaborate. So one thing that you can do if you feel like you're struggling is see it, send it, right? So if you see something that you think is cool, maybe it's a commercial, maybe it's a billboard, maybe you're out somewhere and you see something that you just absolutely love and you feel that you want to try it, or you could take it to your organization and someone can take your idea and make it work, send it to yourself, snap a picture. I know me, sometimes I may be laying in the bed watching TV at 11 o'clock at night and I'll think of something and I'll just hurry to my phone and write it down so that I don't forget. So always send things to yourself, save them, take notes. Again, knowledge sharing. When you collaborate with other people, you may have a piece of the idea and they may have the other piece that fits in the puzzle and makes it one whole, right? So again, sharing your ideas, you get tidbits you can play off of your friends or your coworkers or someone in your family, and you never know how big a small idea can grow to. And another thing is that if you have an idea and you share it with someone in your organization and, maybe it goes nowhere, right? Maybe it kind of falls flat at the moment. Never throw away your idea. Write it down, write down your thoughts, save it, because you never know when sometime in the future you could bring that idea back into play, and maybe it wasn't the right time then, but it might be the right time now.
Thank you so much, Alex. Those are all great advice. And I have my handy dandy notepad here myself, so I would concur with that as well. All right, so I think we want to take this time to open the floor up to questions. So to everybody in the crowd, if you have any questions for the panelists or myself, we would love to see your questions in the chat. Or if you're gonna raise your hand, we would love to hear from you.
And don't make it awkward. Ask questions, please.
Even if it's menial, we'd love to hear from you.
Hey, hello, can you hear me?
Absolutely.
Hey, this is Hamilton speaking, and I'm about to start a job next week, Monday, and it's a supply chain analyst for a company called Focus Brands. And I'm just trying to how can I be, besides the great ideas that you guys have already said, how can I be more proactive and just having success within like the first month, 2-3 months when I start? Because I've already did some research on the brands that I'll be managing. I've already, the hiring manager told me just to look at some of the complications with supply chain in terms of how the weather's impacted supply chain, how the different brands are facilitating supply chain. But what more can I do just to be more proactive and just better, as most prepared as I can be?
Yeah, I can take this one. So Hamilton, I'm a senior supply chain analyst, so I'm in a similar field. I would recommend that you try to absorb as much information as possible within the first few weeks, because every company runs differently. So you want to be able to understand how the supply chain works, but you also want to kind of understand the different processes and how the customer service team and the sales team and the supply chain and the rest of the logistics all comes together, and how everything operates, because there's going to be a bunch of different discrepancies and different ways that this company operates that other companies you may have worked for in the past or you will work for in the future do not work.
All right, thank you for that.
I'd like to add to that, Nick. Those were all great points, but I would definitely say find time to schedule with your leaders and have a sit down, right? Ask them who your support partners are in your organization. Ask them questions, right? You said that your hiring manager told you to do research before you get started. So once you are started, have that conversation. I did this research. This is what I found. Can you elaborate more as how this pertains to my role or what I'll be doing or the people who I'm going to be working with? Like Nick said, soak up as much information as you can and show that initiative like Grayson's been speaking about this entire time. And I think that your leadership team will really appreciate that, and they'll take notice that you're, trying to jump right into it and get started and make an impact within your first month.
Yeah, I think I'd echo what everyone said, and congrats to you, Hamilton. That's awesome. You're already on the right track doing your initial digging before you've even started. So make time, as Alex and Nick said, to, get to know them. If you haven't already, ask. People like to talk about themselves, right? Ask them their story, ask them their background. How did they get to where they are? I have so many just from mentors that I have their success stories and failure stories, that they've shared with me. And I think of those today still, and they've shaped my professional and personal growth, just remembering those stories and having them serve as motivation and inspiration. So try and get to know them. I even texted a mentor before this event. I was like, hey, I was thinking about you going into this event. I hadn't talked to him in a year, but he left a mark on me. But so try and get to know them, ask them their stories. People like to talk about themselves. Also, I don't know what your specific role is, but try and identify or ask bluntly, if there are any top of mind inefficiencies or processes that could be strengthened. Look for inefficiencies. And like I mentioned, crafting a roadmap buzzword, but only a buzzword in the sense I think people sometimes get intimidated by that because you have to do it all at once, but you don't. If you can identify an inefficiency or something that you can tell that they keep bringing up over and over again, or it comes up, you don't have to know on day one, but over a couple weeks, reflect and notice what topics came up a lot. And then, maybe be proactive and say, I noticed that this came up a lot. Can I do X, Y, or Z to try and help, or come up with something on your own? I think that's, even if it doesn't lead to something immediately, they will notice that you were proactive and reached out and asked about something and were listening. And so I think that could go a long way with having a really shining reputation from the start.
Yep.
So,
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Caitlyn. Sorry.
Sorry, one sentence answer for me because I want to leave time for the rest of the questions. Don't be afraid to show off how excited you are, because we all get so excited on the first day of the job, really nervous, but harness that energy into excitement and it'll come through in everything that you do and all the questions that you ask. I swear by that. So.
And I would like to.
Thank you all.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would just like to concur with what everybody else said. Finding somebody who's a mentor to you who can help guide you throughout your journey is extremely important, as well as what Grayson touched upon. Having some people that you can communicate to and ask questions is extremely important. If you ask questions and find clarity with what you need to do, you'll never, ever be on the wrong foot. So you're on the right path, Hamilton, for sure.
Thank you, all of you. Thank you.
All right, so we're going to go to the next question. I think somebody had their hand up, if I'm not mistaken.
And we do have some in chat as well.
Yeah, I'm going to get to those after. I think somebody had their hand raised, so I want to get to them first.
Yeah, I was going to ask how you did the most mentorship opportunity, and you guys kind of said, trying to touch on that. So I kind of mind, but if you guys want to expand on that, I think that would be helpful. I've been nominated for a professional program where we set up a mentor, and we're just starting it, so I'm just trying to make sure that know what questions to ask.
Hey, I don't know if it was me. Did anybody else have issues hearing the question?
Yeah, could you type that into chat really quickly, because we were having issues. It sounded really choppy.
Yeah, there was some feedback. Sorry about that, Alex.
Sorry, Alex, we should have stopped you early on, but we'll wait and type answer it still.
I think we were hoping it would get better halfway. I think we were hoping it would right the ship. But we're going to go ahead and go to Chad and try to answer some of these questions as well. If you can put that in the chat. Thanks, Alex.
This dinner question is creative.
It is very creative. We got some good ones.
First, but that's a great question, Shane.
Yeah, so I will actually tackle this first. I would probably say, maybe this is a cheesy answer, but Steve Jobs, because I feel like his number one is passion and excitement for what he does. A little too much, maybe, but maybe I could learn from that as well. So, plus he's huge in the tech field. So, good job. Way to create Apple. No big deal.
Mine is going to be a cheesy answer as well, and I feel like everybody says this, but I'm literally going to say Oprah. But my reason is, I would ask her what her thought process is when she goes into an interview, right? Because to be a great interviewer, you have to be a great storyteller, and you have to have some type of discernment when you're talking to the person that's across from you to know what questions to ask next. So I think that's very important, to be able to gauge a person just from sitting across from them, and to be able to pick up on the direction that conversation should go, or to lead the conversation in the way in which you want it to go. So I'd ask her on her process of that.
Yeah, and we're going to get to Nick and Grayson next for this question, but I'm going to read it out loud just in case everybody hasn't seen it. So the question is, if you could have dinner with one person, that person could be alive, deceased, or fictional, who would you have dinner with and why? So Nick, Grayson, you guys want to tackle that next?
Yeah, I can get it. So my number one would be Elon Musk, because I see him as a visionary. And I mean, I would have told you this for the past 6 years, that Elon Musk, every single company he creates, it's with the people in mind. Like, you know, it's with people like us in mind to help anyone and everyone. So he's all about helping everyone, and that's all I'm about. I mean, that I create automated tasks to help other people in my company, and I feel like I would just love to pick his brain on what he sees the world going to, and how he thinks through certain questions, just so I can kind of incorporate that into my mindset.
It's a great point, Nick. We'll go to you next, Grayson.
Gosh, I've been racking my brain over this. I feel like I don't have a super obvious one. This is terrible, but I feel like some celebrities came up in my mind first. But business-wise, well, I'm really passionate about philanthropy. So, you know, any successful businessman or woman of a large company that's also done a lot for their company philanthropically or personally with a foundation would be super interesting. Yeah, somebody just Bill Gates. I follow his wife on Instagram, on LinkedIn, but love philanthropy. I see such an importance in that as far as in my business, managing and preserving and growing the wealth of these individuals who have spent their entire life, building this wealth to transfer along to their family. And, I hold that to a very high regard and a high responsibility. I think it's really cool to see folks with that level of wealth give back. So that would be awesome. But probably David Solomon, the CEO of Goldman Sachs, I'd have to say that'd be really awesome to just sit down and pick his brain. Seems very approachable and, has built an empire. And DJ Saul on the side, I would love to just hear his story from the ground up, aside from reading it on paper. It'd be really awesome.
And I'll give a quick answer as well. Mine would be Oprah as well, Alex. She has a very colorful history. Honestly, if you read her biography, it's crazy, everything she's been through and what she's accomplished. So that would definitely be mine as well. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and go to some more questions in the chat. Hey Jack, can you keep me honest on the time as well so we don't go over? If you just wanna ping me.
Yep.
Okay,
So,
gotcha. So the next question would be how to admit your failure to your manager and willingness to learn from your mistakes. So if anybody wants to elaborate on that.
I can take that one. I'll take that one because I throw out so many ideas, right? And hopefully you're in an organization that allows you to try things and make mistakes. Every organization is different, every team is different, but the best thing that you can do if you have what you deem as a failure, everything's a learning experience, right? So it may not necessarily be considered a failure, but if you have something that doesn't quite go your way, the first thing you should do is completely own it. Never place blame, just take the ownership and ask for feedback, right? You can have a conversation with your leader and say, I tried this, or I know I was supposed to do this and that didn't happen because of X, Y, and Z. Moving forward, in order for this not to happen again, here is what I'm going to do. Can I please have some feedback from you on that? So I wouldn't, just approach my leader to say, man, I messed up. Always come with, ownership and then what you plan to do moving forward to keep that from happening the next time. So think through it before you approach your manager. Make sure you're prepared for that feedback, because sometimes that feedback might be hard, right? Just take the feedback in and try to apply whatever is given to you.
Hey, does everybody else want to answer that question? If not, we have time for one more question and we're going to wrap it up. Is that okay?
Yeah, I think Alex answered it perfectly.
Okay, perfect. So I think the last question we have is a question for everyone, just to wrap up. So what is the most important action that someone can take to help them succeed in moving forward? Sorry.
I think we did have the one from Alex. Do we want to ask that one?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I didn't see that one.
Okay, yeah, so Alex asks, how do you get the most out of an internship, a mentorship program? So I will actually take this one first, if y'all don't mind. He was nominated for a 6-month young professional mentorship program, and I want to make sure that I make the most out of the experience. Okay, so I just recently got involved with a mentorship program that started in my department, and I am lucky enough that 2 people actually volunteered to mentor me. They're both really, really intelligent. One is our CISO, which I about died when I heard that my CISO wanted to mentor me. What I have done is I make sure that I have a backlog of questions, because you want to make sure you never run out of those. And I've made sure to separate them into categories and by priority of the most important ones. That both will help me with my nervousness and will help me make sure I get the most out of it, I think. But everybody else should definitely answer this one. This one's important.
I don't know if it's in person, Alex. This is you know, back when I first started, I remember hating this piece of advice, but being the first one in and the last one out is really great. I think showing up to meetings a minute or two early, staying a little bit later, people notice that and interpret it as proactiveness. I think that that's helpful. And again, I would just echo what I said earlier about asking folks their story, and really trying to, as much, as many folders or tools as you have access to, spend the time learning those outside of your, expected tasks of you. Spend time digging into all the resources you can. So to Caitlyn's point, you have a running list of questions, and people really appreciate thoughtful questions. So best of luck and congrats.
And Alex, I'd like to add that if you meet with your mentor and they give you some things that you can apply in your follow-up meetings, because I'm certain you'll have more than just one, right? Give examples of how you applied what they suggested to you and feedback on how that worked for you, because they'll see that as, you're actually taking heed to the advice that they're providing.
And I would like to add something as well. So if you're an internship, basically you're there free labor. So the least you can do is try to absorb everything as much as you can. Go to every single department, every single leader you can meet, everybody, and you just ask every single question that you could possibly ask, because that's pretty much how I absorbed everything from my internship. And it was one of the most beneficial experiences I've ever had. So absolutely, just ask everybody every question that you possibly can, and try to gain as much knowledge as possible. I
Also,
hope we.
One more thing, just be authentic and be yourself. Aside from all the work stuff, tell them about what you enjoy doing in your free time. Ask what they like doing. It's easy to get robotic when you're so worried about impressions, but I just realized I'm the only one without the tag background. I like to snow ski. I love the mountains. These are my aspen tree backgrounds. People like to hear about you and learn about you. And that kind of shows confidence too, that you're not just, of course it's intimidating starting out, but definitely just be yourself and be transparent, and don't be ashamed of it.
Another great point, Grayson. Absolutely. So I guess that wraps up the inaugural event, guys. So pretty much what we're going to do. Thank you everyone for attending and participating, and thanks to our panelists as well for their great insights they provided this evening. Please follow our social media pages and keep an eye out for future events. If you guys could stick around for networking and breakout groups, we'll automatically assign to your room so we can have some intensive and interpersonal conversations. So thank you guys so much for joining.